Hi, I'm Greg from Swank Designs. Originally I was going to do a unboxing video, but in all honesty, unboxing is kind of boring. And let's face it, JTech has been around a long time. They're a top shelf organization. They're not going to forget something. So the important thing here is, how do we get this thing installed? So without further ado, let's just move on to the installation of the JTech 4.2 watt laser on my Shapoko machine. Thanks for watching. Okay, well, the first thing we're going to do, we got the three parts here for the laser holder. We have the part that's going to go on here, the actual part that holds the laser, and of course the magnetic laser itself. So the first thing you want to do is decide which side of this you want your laser on. Do you want it on the right side or do you want it on the left side? Once you've determined that, for my laser or for my system, I'm going to put it on the right side. And then the other thing you want to just make sure on this piece here, there's 4 screws that are going to tighten down onto the housing back here. Just make sure you've got these backed off, and so that they're not poking through here, because this is a real tight fit. It looks like it was 3D printed, maybe it's ABS. And then of course you're going to need your little 12 millimeter Allen wrench. So with that said, we're going to first install this, which is the holder for the laser, the magnetic holder, and we're going to install that into here like that. So you're going to need the 2 screws and the backing nut for it, and we're going to assemble that right now. When you get your unit, you probably won't be able to see it very clearly on this video, but where the mounts are going to go, there's 2 holes, and on this side, on this particular side where the slot is, these actually have pockets in them. So my recommendation is to first go ahead and take your small nut and get those seated in there real nice before you try and put your bracket on, and you'll see why in just a minute. Okay, so I press these in with the pliers just a little bit, these nuts, just so that they're nice and firm and holding until I can put the unit on. So now it's time to go ahead and put the actual holder on, the bracket holder. So that's just going to slip into this particular slot right here. If you can see that or not. Get my camera angle a little better. So that's going to slip in there. And then we have 2 bolts that are going to go through. And if I have those lined up on the other side, they should fit right through there. And I do. Lucky me. So there we go. Pretty simple actually. Grab your 12 millimeter Allen wrench and just tighten everything down. Okay, we now have the holder onto the bracket, or the bracket onto the holder, whichever way you want to look at that. And the rest of it's pretty simple. I mean, this is really the simplest part probably of the whole project. So all you're going to do is put this on here like so. I put my hands behind the plates here, and you just push. Remember, you had to back these screws off so that they fit. Once you have that done, you're good to go. All you have to do then is just tighten the screws down on the top. Again, 12 millimeter, little 12 millimeter Allen wrench will do the trick. There's top and bottom, so don't miss the bottom ones. And this is going to firm this up right onto the unit itself here. Gotta get my elbows out of the way so you can see. Okay, so that's nice and snug. I'll do the bottoms, and that should be it. Once I get the bottom ones tightened, you simply take your laser, and it's really strong magnets. I like this, and just slip it on there like so. Just snaps on. That's it. All right, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to move into setting up the electronics on the back of the Shapoko control box. First thing is just to remove the cover here. So take your screws out, All right, so we'll take the cover off. I'll get a little bit closer angle on that. Get all our plugs undone because we're going to want to mount this particular, the control module for the laser. We're going to want to mount this onto here. So that's going to be this next segment. And just remember, before you detach, make sure you've got everything labeled right so you know where it plugs back in. All right, I've removed the box from the Shipoko control panel, and the next part of this process, this is probably the most difficult thing in the whole thing, just getting everything set up for the electronics. But it's not that bad. So what we're going to end up doing is putting the control box, mounting that control box right to the side of this. So the one thing that you want to make sure is your orientation. So we know that this, with the 3 holes, is the bottom of the box, and this is going to be the top of our unit here with the on-off switch and the key. So we want to make sure that we're going to put that on there like so. In order to do that, we can remove these 4 screws, and then we're going to simply use the holes for our template. All right, on second thought, if you take these screws out of here, then there's wire connections between the fan and all that kind of stuff. So you actually have to remove all that stuff just to use the bottom plate as a template. And being Irish and always trying to come up with the cheapest, easiest, most efficient way to do stuff, I thought, well, you know what, let's take the box that came with the power supply box, simply set this on here. I'm going to put my hand inside to give it a little firmness, and then I'm just going to press down a little bit. Okay, and what I have now is I have 4 holes that are lined up perfectly with that. And then I'm just going to go ahead and cut it out, tape it on there, make my punches, and then drill it. You guys can do whatever you want, but JTech, the only thing I would suggest in this whole process is just make a template that the folks can just tape down on the thing, do their punches, and be done with it. So anyway, I'm going to make this little jig here for this, and we'll see how it works out. All right, so I went ahead and cut out the template, got the holes all there. I'll punch them and get the right size bit, drill a hole through there, and we're done. All right, so the next step we're going to do is there's 3 parts in this little bag. There's the cord, you can see a little tiny pin, and the pusher that they give you to install that pin. We're going to install that on the main board of the Shipoko. I don't know if we're going to be able to see it, but if you look at this pin, there's a short end, which is on this end, or what? Anyway, you'll see the prongs on one side are really short, and the prongs on the other side are long. The long ones we want sticking out, so we're going to push the short pins into the board. So in this picture, you see the arrows pointing to the location of those holes. It's going to be the bottom 2 holes just above the weight clip. It's kind of self-explanatory. So remember, you're going to be taking the short end you're going to be taking that short end, and you're going to be putting it into the 2 bottom holes right here. We're going to see if we can do that. So you can go ahead and get them started. Just pop them in there. If you look at this push stick that they give you for inserting these pins here, you'll notice that there's a slot. You want that slot to be on the top. If you have it this way and you're trying to push the pins in, they have a tendency to fall out just as you get it there. So make sure that that slot's pointing up, and then just it's loose in there right now, so we're going to go ahead and Get it nice and tight. Now this is it's gonna take a little bit of pressure because those pins have to be really, really tight. There's a spreader in here, or the pins themselves have a spreader on them so that they seat really, really hard. Yeah, that's in there really tight. And another kudos shout out to JTech on this, because before they came up with this pin insertion, you had to solder these on to the leads. You had to take the board off and solder them, so this is really a nice addition. Okay, so we have the pin connector, or the pin in, that's inserted, and here's the wire that's going to go to it, and I've already ran that through the bottom of my panel here. And according to the diagram, the PMW signal is the red wire, and the ground is going to be your black wire. So what we're going to do then, before we hook everything else up, is we're just going to put that on, like so. Like that. Red wire on the top, black wire on the bottom. Everything's ran through the panel. I'll go ahead and hook up all of my X, Y, and Z stuff here, and we're going to put the box back on and move on. Alright, let's take a look at the cabling. This is going to be our final steps here before we can fire up our JTech laser. I can't wait. So what you want to make sure you do first is you want to identify these ends. You'll notice there's a small one which is going to go to the fan later on, and then the controller one, which is the two-prong one. On the other end of the cable, you want to make sure that you have the correct ends so that these are going to line up before you even start working. So make sure you have your ends right. So I've got this already taped on this side so that I know that this is the end that's going to go to this. And then I'm going to go ahead and grab some black tape, and this cable's probably, what, 12 feet long or so. I'm going to start incrementally putting some black tape on here just to keep the cables together before I start snaking things through. So I'll do that off camera and we'll go from there. Alright, so you have a couple options here. I've already went ahead and taped up all of my cabling here so that it's nice and tidy, and you have a couple of options. You can either run it through the track like I'm going to do here, or you can use the zip ties that they gave you, and you can go behind the track like so and just zip tie everything to the back side of the track. It's totally up to you. It takes a little bit more time, obviously, to run it through the track and get it back for both the X and Y axis, but that's what I'm going to attempt to do next, and we'll go from there. And then the final part of this is going to be just connecting stuff to the driver controller that we've already mounted. So I'll do all of this off camera so it doesn't bore you, and then we'll get to the final hookup and powering up the laser. Okay, so the last and final step here is just to hook everything up. And if you remember, we had this wire here, which went all the way back, came out of our carbide box. That's the one that we pinned earlier. This is going to get put into this particular pin right here. So we're just going to slip that in there until it clicks. This is coming off of our long cable. That's going to our X and Y axis. And this one also has a little clip on it, as you can see, so we want to make sure that that's going to snap in there. So we're going to put that in here right here. Bear with me. I got to twist it a little bit. Yeah, like that, like so. So that's going to go in here just like that. All right. And then the last one, if you can see in the hole here, there's two white pins located down in here. You want the one on the left, and that's going to be our fan, which is the cable right here. And that pin has there's a slot in it that goes in that groove. So, oops, sorry, got to turn that around too. If you can see that, that's the orientation that it's going to go in. And that's going to get put in right here. And there it is. And then, so there's your 3 cables coming from the laser, going to the laser, and going to the fan. And the last thing is your power supply. And the power supply, hard to see on here, but it's right underneath all of this. It's right in the middle. You'll see it when you, I don't know if you can see it in here, but there's your power supply right down in there. And you just put that in there, and we're good to go. So we have the power supply, everything's all set up. The last and final step here for this particular video is to put the key in, make sure that that's in there and that it functions. It does. We're good to go. All right, so there you have it. That's the complete installation for the JTech 4.2 watt laser. Last but not least, we now have everything installed. Everything's looking good. We're going to power up this unit. Be sure to proudly display the JTech Photonics emblem, and most certainly put on your danger laser and use tag, just as a reminder. Remember, this is not a toy, so we don't want anybody's pupils getting fried. So this is Greg from Swank Designs, and I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it was helpful for the installation of the 4.2 watt laser, and I thank you for watching. Leave any comments or suggestions below, and we'll see what we can do in the future. Upcoming, we'll be firing up the 4.2 watt laser and doing some test burns, so stay tuned for that one. Thank you.